and I heard him speak, I knew he was my kind of guy. He's a strong Republican, and I like our newly elected state party chair a whole lot. He talks the talk, but he also walks the walk in his duties as state party chair, and that's a man I can appreciate. It's my honor to introduce the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, Mr. Claude.
Thanks, Jackson. That was an incredible story about your son. It was a miracle. My gosh! And thank you to the Archer Lodge Fire Department for all the work that they did there as well. I have a napkin too. Mine has about 6 bullets on it. You know, Ronald Reagan. It is Ronald Reagan. Just making sure. This is a Reagan bit, right? A little bit. You know, Ronald Reagan once said that Republicans celebrate joyously the holiday of July 4th, while Democrats joyously celebrate Tax Day, April 15th. I think as a state chairman, and I know Jackson can attest to this as a county chair, if you're the chairman of a party, you celebrate the day after a primary, probably more than any other day of the year.
Amen.
And you know, I remember the days when, and I'm sure many of you do as well, when we had a hard time finding candidates for primaries. In fact, we used to talk to folks and on party registration drives, and we'd say, look, you need to be, you know, we want to sign you up to be a Republican. And say, no, I'll stay a Democrat. That way I can vote in the primary. You ever heard that before? Oh, I was so sick of hearing that. And you know, these folks would tell you how conservative they were, but they just couldn't bring themselves over to change their party. Well, guess what, folks? The action today is in the Republican Party. If you don't believe it, look, I mean, we had 8 Senate candidates in a primary. We had 9 or 10, I think, up in District 6. Obviously, we had 3 here in District 7. We've had primaries all over the state. We've got primaries for sheriff. We've got primaries for school board. We've got primaries for county commissioner. What a great thing, and what a great progress we have made over the last 20 or 30 years as a party, where you can actually engage in a primary at the lowest level of elected office in this state. And I say the lowest level only out of respect for the fact that most of our money, most of our tax dollars, those decisions are actually made at the lowest level. And so when you go to the ballot box to vote for a county commissioner or a school board candidate, you're looking somebody in the eye who probably lives across the street from you, probably went to high school, probably works down the street or maybe in your same office building. You know each other. You have a relationship. And when you talk to that individual about how your tax dollars are going to be spent, that person is much more apt to listen to you, don't you think? Because you have a relationship. And politics really is about relationships. It's about the personal relationships that we have with our candidates and ourselves. It's not really about the candidate. It's more about you. It really matters how you feel about the issues and how well you can communicate those issues back to your candidates and or elected officials once they're elected. But primaries are a good thing. They're a very good thing. And I'm thrilled that they're over. Because now it's time to come together. And I can tell you this too, that the landscape, political landscape of North Carolina is littered with the bodies of primary candidates that I have supported who have lost. I have supported quite a few who have lost over the years. And in every single situation where my guy lost, I always supported the winner of that primary with my money, with my time, making phone calls, putting yard signs out. It didn't matter. And it's up to us as a party to come together and support those winners. And boy, do we have some great winners with us tonight. David Rouser, Tom Tellis, and the many of you who won your local primaries here as well. And I'm proud to stand with them every day and say to them, you're our guy. What can we do to help you succeed? And that's our job. Now, I just got back from the RNC meeting, the spring meeting, and I wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of things. And by the way, I really didn't know this when I ran for chairman. Somebody said, well, by the way, what do you think about the RNC? I don't know. There's some group of folks that get together up in Washington and hobnob with the who's who of Hooterville. And they said, well, you're one of them now. Really? So there's actually, the RNC has 168 voting members. And there's 3 voting members from every state and territory in the nation. And so they have meetings 3 times a year. And of course, during the presidential cycle, they host the convention and they do a number of other things as well. And our spring meeting, 2 big issues came out of this last spring meeting. The first is we're going to move the national convention back away from late August, and we're going to move it to either late June or July. And the reason we want to move the national convention back is the presidential candidates cannot access the general election money until they've been officially nominated by the party. Well, if you wait until the end of August to make your official nomination, you're only leaving them a couple of months to access the general election money. And so we wanted to give them access to those funds a little bit quicker. So we're moving the national convention back into late June. Now, there's going to be a ripple effect on that. That means the state conventions and all will have to move backwards a little bit. The timing that we take to send delegates to the RNC will change, but that's okay. That's a huge move in our favor and for our presidential candidates. And the second thing that happened, I think you'll all be really excited about this, and I don't know if you remember, but we had 23 presidential primary debates in the last cycle. But most of those debates were moderated not by our friends. They were moderated by the liberal media. And I'm getting just a little bit sick and tired of having Candy Crawley decide who our presidential candidates are going to be. How about you? We're taking over the primary debate process away from the liberal media, and we're putting it back into the hands of Republicans. And it will now be Republicans who decide what the format is, who the moderators are, what the venue is, who's going to be allowed to be in that debate or not. And it's going to be Republicans vetting Republican candidates instead of the liberal media vetting our candidates. And that's a very huge move in our favor coming up. So that was a great thing that the RNC did this week. We're also down to the final 6 cities that are in contention for the 2016 Republican National Convention. Let's see, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Denver, Dallas, Kansas City, and Las Vegas. And over the next couple of weeks, that list will get whittled down to about 3 or 4. And then at our summer meeting in August, we will actually make the final decision on where the 2016 National Convention will be. One of the considerations for the convention will not be the political implication of having that convention in a swing state. Because it's been proven time and time again that it really doesn't matter. And if you want a good example of that, look at the Democratic convention in Charlotte recently for Obama. We still won North Carolina for Romney. So the bigger issues with where to have the convention really is more like any other meeting. It's logistics, it's security, it's ingress, egress, how many hotel rooms, how far away are they? When the convention was down in Tampa, we had long bus rides from St. Pete and some other areas, and the walls of security were just oppressive. You still have to have security, obviously, but you can do a better job of managing that. So anyway, we're really excited about being able to announce where that convention is going to be this August. I just want to give a shout out also to Nick. Nick, by virtue of his role as a TARS chairman, also sits on our Central Committee. And the Central Committee is a very important body of the North Carolina Republican Party because it's like my board of directors. And so we meet 6 times a year. By definition of our bylaws, we actually meet much more frequently than that by teleconference. But Nick's been a big part of that, and he's just a fine young man, and I just wanted to say thanks for being here tonight. Now, last thing we need to do is we got to get Tom across the finish line in November. And I'm so proud of him and the work that he's done. And Susan, I know you guys are probably not getting a whole lot of sleep nowadays, but that's okay. You're doing the right thing, and we're behind you 100%. The hardest working people besides Tom are the county chairs like this. And we have 100 county chairs all across this state that are working their tails off, doing the hard work of organizing, pulling together volunteers, getting the yard signs out, manning the phone banks, and getting our candidates across the finish line. And I'm so proud of each and every one of them. Jack.